Welcome to another episode of Learning sCrypt tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to run and debug a smart contract. Again, we can start from sCrypt.io homepage, and then we can click Downloads, and when we are at the Desktop ID section, and we are going to click Read User Menu, which takes us to the user menu for the desktop IDE. So here we can navigate to debugger section. So this is the main documentation we are going to use for today's video. So let's start from a simple example. So here we have a demo contract, which is very easy. Basically, you give it two parameters, and then you can have it has two public functions. One is sum add. So basically, you require a z that's equal to the sum of the two, or you can call this a sub public function, which is a difference between the x and y. So how do we run it? So basically, we go to run and debug on the left panel. So we click it, and now if the first time we try to run it, it will prompt we don't have a launch.json file. So basically, this is a config file we need to run and debug the contract. So let's say create a new one, and then in this drop-down menu, we are going to create a debug sCrypt. So again, for easier to see, let's put in another window. So here we have a default setting here. This is the default configuration for launch and sCrypt smart contract. So it has a bunch of it is a JSON config file, has a bunch of properties. So for the first two, we don't have to worry, and for the third one, I think this is the default. In this case, I'm going to change it to just demo. And then for the programs, this is just the main contract file. So I'm going to tell it. So here I'm going to use actually, if we can scroll down, so this is a config description. Basically, this gives all the instructions on how to fill the different JSON config parameters we just see here. So for program, we have to specify the source file. So we can also use this like a VS Code work folder. Basically, it's a macro that's to simplify our work. You can regard it as the root of our current project. So we can see in this case, we are just the demo.script file. So again, this macro, you can think of it as the current project root. So here we have three required parameters. First one is constructor arguments. So in this case, this is a constructor. It requires two integer parameters. So let's just put some random numbers here. Let's say 2 and 40. So this basically helps us to initialize the contract. And the next two is going to help us to call a contract function. So you will let us know which function we are going to call. So let's call add here. And also what are the arguments to it. We can just put, let's say 42 here. So once we fill in all this, the JSON config, we can then, on the left-hand side, top left, we can, let's drag it a little bit. It has this button. It says run and debug. So because this is the config, the name is demo, so we're just going to run it. Let's see how it goes. Okay, it just very quick. It just finished. Let's actually come here. It says execution successful. So let's run it again just to see here. If we go to this at the bottom, we go to debug console panel. So if we run again, we'll see, oh, it succeeded. So this basically a workflow how do we run a contract within VS Code. So a lot of time when you first write a contract, it's very hard to get it right at the first time, right? So usually you have some kind of mistake. Let's just intentionally get a mistake here. So instead of 42, let's just say we put 40 here. And let's rewrite and see what happens. Okay, now it says it throws some exception as expected because this the 40 is not equal to the 2 plus 40 here. So basically this says something's wrong. So we can stop the running it. And as in many other languages, now we want to debug to see what went wrong, right? So a very first way we can do it is just to set up a breakpoint. Let's set up a breakpoint here, and let's rewrite and see what happened. Okay, so not surprisingly, it stopped at the line we set a breakpoint in. And in this case, we can even, because it's calling another function, we can even, here it's a widget that should be familiar with if you have used any other debugger. So basically have a bunch of options. You can continue, basically go to the next breakpoint or go to the end of the program, or you can step over, step into, and step out, or you can rerun and stop it. So in this case, because we are calling into a sum function, let's try to step in, basically to jump in if there's a function in the current line. So let's step in, and as expected, it went inside the function that's being called. And on the left side, we can look at all the variables. So we can see, we can expand this. So basically, x value is 2, as we set assigned before, and y is 40. We can see it here. So also here, we are calling this function with x and y. So a and b got assigned 2 and 40 accordingly. So we can see the values all here. Also, there's another panel, subpanel called the call stack. Basically, this is the function call stack. We can see we went from add being called. If you click on it, it will jump to the line where this is called. And if we click sum, it will take us back to the inner function. This is the call of the stack. You can also watch variables as in many other debuggers. So in this case, if we can come back again, so basically now we can see, hopefully this can help us. We can also hover it, it will show the current value. So basically this is 2 and 40, and this is 40. So this will greatly help us to identify where things got wrong. So another way we can use this is the so-called debug console. It has this command line input mode here, which most people call also as known as a REPL. Basically read, evaluate, repeat, and loop. So it's basically it's a REPL for debug console. We can type any expressions here, and it will show us what's the value. For example, we have z here, so we can type z. It shows as 40. We can also see, oh, which is what is the value for this dot x. So okay, it's 2. So basically, this is a very handy way for us to compute any expression we want to see. You can also type some arbitrary expression. It will also tell you the value here. So it's a very handy way for you to quickly see if you want to quickly evaluate some expression without rerun. So hopefully this is very helpful to identify where things went wrong. So let's stop it here. Okay, in summary, so we basically showed how do you run a contract by using a config file called launch.json. And we also show if things go wrong, how do you debug it using the debugger. So as a note, most of the features we talk about here is not specific to sCrypt extension in the VS Code. It's actually very common across all the VS Code debuggers. So if you really want to find out more, you can Google VS Code debugger, and this is going to show all the instructions that's going to cover most of what we have shown today. So I'm also going to put the link in the show note, and also for sCrypt specific debugging options. For example, what are the config parameters, what does each one mean, and what's the format for each of them, and how do you view all of them, setting a debugger or step over. For specific instruction, you can also find out at the sCrypt IDE documentation. So I think it's a good place to end for today, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you.